Thank you, Mike. In the meantime, lots of name calling by both sides ahead of these talks to Home Depot co-founder Bernie Marcus on if that is really accomplishing anything. Now, you argue that it's not, Bernie, that in this environment, no one's really comporting themselves like supposedly the leaders they are, right?
Well, you just heard that the president wants to talk to Congress. He's not talking with Congress. So, you know, that's Neil, it seems like you have two intransigent sides that are not willing to talk to each other. Obviously, the president has said, you know, we'll talk later. Give me what I want, and we'll talk later. It's going to accomplish nothing. I think this game is going to go to the end, and it may go past the end. But I'm going to give you a bright side. You want to really hear a bright side, Neil?
Have at it.
And as an entrepreneur, you have to think about what's bright. You know, a lot of workers are out of work. A lot of the bureaucrats are out of work, and the bureaucracies aren't functioning today. Now, all of these people, I'm sorry they're not getting a paycheck, but they're going to get their money eventually. Congress is going to give it to them, no question about it. But think about this, Neil. While they're out, they're not writing bills. They're not doing regulations. We may be saving millions of dollars every hour that they're out. So, you know, it's not a bad thing. It may be a good thing in some respects.
All right. It could also be delaying. It could also be delaying that so-called debt ceiling doomsday date of October 17th that we just don't know. But, you know, do you think that this brinksmanship is a good way to conduct business on either party's part?
Well, look, Neil, I've been in business for many, many years, and I've done negotiations over my lifetime many times, as I'm sure a lot of your audience has. The first thing in a negotiation, you don't vilify your opponent. You don't demonize your opponent. If you do, the odds of making a deal in good faith, and it's got to be a compromise by both sides, and both sides have to work on the deal, it's not going to work. And any businessman will tell you this is not the way you negotiate. But I think that this president, who has never had any business experience, who really is not prepared for this kind of thing, is really standing on his philosophy of running a business. And I don't think he's willing to get into the trenches and really do the kind of things that negotiators do.
Well, flip it around to Republicans then. Would you have forced the issue, and what would have been certainly Herculean odds, to defund a health care law the way they went about it, attaching it essentially to the government staying open or not? Would you have done that?
No, I think, listen, if that was a negotiating tool that was brought up for a reason to get to this point, I don't think it was ever going to be working, because let's face it, even if the House and Senate passed a bill overriding Obamacare in any way, shape, or form, he was going to veto it. So Why spend the energy and strength? I think they wasted a chance, but I think that it may have been something now where the negotiation will say, well, let's put that aside and let's work on the issues of getting the debt down and being able to pay off this enormous debt that the country has now accumulated. I mean, $17 trillion. You know, it's going to end up by the end of the Obama regime. It's going to be, you know, $20 or $21 trillion. I can't even say the words anymore.
It's a big. It's almost as much as you're worth. But I would be curious.
Yeah, sure.
I would be curious about one. You mentioned about your own success about building Home Depot up. I think you were talking to the Detroit Economic Club, and in your remarks you said if you had to start Home Depot today, you couldn't do it. In this environment, you couldn't do it. Explain.
Neil, it's factual, by the way. This is not just an emotional feel. I'm saying it because I'm not happy with the economy. It's not true. If I had a half hour, I could explain it to you, but it has to do with Sarbanes-Oxley, which was, by the way, signed by a Republican president. It has to do with, Dodd-Frank, because let's face it, if we didn't have a line of credit when we started our business, we did it through a banker in California who looked at our character, who bought who we were, and he gave us a line of credit. Even with Langone on the board and Langone looking for bankers to help us. Yeah, I'm talking about Ken Langone. We couldn't find a banker that was willing to give us a line anywhere. Now, in today's environment, regulators would never, ever allow, and I'm talking about not allowing a banker to give the kind of loan with the kind of balance sheet that we had. We couldn't have started off, from day one we wouldn't have been open.
But, you know, I mean, you mentioned how tough it is with the rules and regulations. But one thing I loved in your speech is this. You step back and said, you know, we've been through worse. You said we overcame the original sin of slavery with the Civil War. We survived the Great Depression, We beat the Nazi menace. We survived the China syndrome, mad cow disease, bird flu, swine flu, SARS, Y2K, global cooling, global warming, too. We even survived disco. That I found a nice little appendage. But so your point is, as tough as things look in the moment, we always get through this stuff, and you are confident we will again.
Listen, I think the one thing we forget about is the American spirit. And I don't want to sound like a politician. I'm not running for office, obviously. But the American spirit is there. The American people are not that stupid. The American people, I think, finally are beginning to understand the facts of life. And I think they're going to tolerate just so much of this nonsense before they turn around and say, I've had enough of this. And the American spirit, I mean the entrepreneurs, even though it's tough today, and even though we couldn't have opened a Home Depot today in this environment, you're still not going to stop the entrepreneurs from coming up with new ideas.
I think you're right. We always survive, and we will again. Bernie Marcus, thank you very, very much.